Whenever we think of the cost of something, we tend to focus on the price, the financial burden. But when it comes to a topic like beauty, the true cost goes beyond money. The true cost of beauty is physical, emotional, cultural, political, and spiritual.
When I think of beauty, I don't always automatically think of hair. I mean, you just said to me, what do I think, of beauty? And the first vision that came into my mind, because it's current, is the beautiful actress from 12 Years a Slave, Lupita Nyong'o. And she doesn't have long hair.
I don't particularly agree with the statement that your hair is your beauty, although I do understand where people are coming from when they make that comment.
Sometimes people do equate beauty with hair, but I don't understand why they always do that, because there are many beautiful women who don't have long hair. There are beautiful women who don't have any hair.
I've relaxed my hair from the age of 18. My aunt took me to get my hair relaxed. She said I was old enough to, so sort of like come of age and get my hair relaxed. So I went, did that. Didn't like it because it was too limp and what have you, but anyway, got used to it. And then eventually, somewhere in my early 20s, a friend of mine said, oh, why don't you go and get a weave done? And then after that, I was just kind of addicted to weaves for ages.
I didn't really get on very well with relaxers when I was in my early 20s. So I never, it didn't really work for me. It didn't work for my hair type. And so it was something that I turned away from quite early. And I used to actually wear my hair in braids. So what I did wear was sometimes weaves, and also I wore a lot of braids. That was my main hairstyle for most of my life.
I used to have my hair in so many different styles. I went from plaiting with extensions to relaxing to weaving, and it was like a cycle. I just went between all three of those. And I even had a wet look as well at one stage, which was awful for my skin.
I was using straighteners to get that kind of last bit of my hair really, really straight to cover the weave, so much to the point where it started actually breaking, and it was kind of more standing up rather than lying flat because it was so broken off. I'd just done so much damage to the heat, but I still didn't stop. I kept going.
Yeah, it was just chemical after weaves, after all sorts of different things in my hair. I dyed my hair. When I went to college, I dyed my hair purple.
So when I used to wear my hair in braids and in plaits and in cornrows with extensions, which I did for most of my life, for most of my young life, I did that for fashion, for style. But what a lot of the naturalistas, the girls who are natural, call it, when they wear protective styling, they're doing that to give their hair a rest from the daily grooming. So it's the same thing, the same hairstyle, but it's the reasons that you're doing it that are different.
Yeah, I would take a day off work, take my hair out, run around the back streets of Oxford Street to get to my hairdresser so no one would see me. My hair all wrapped up, shades, get to the hairdressers. Once I'm all done and I have my weave back in, I was back to me. And then I could just take my glasses off and be me. Except I wasn't being me at all, but yeah. But yeah, I was in love with my weave, and I was a proud weave wearer and not very proud of myself at all, like my natural hair. So yeah, come a long way since then.
There's not only limits with the styles you can have with weaves, but there are also limits on what you can do when you are wearing a weave.
One of the things I do like about the naturalistas is that when you see them, they all look so different. Every hairstyle is an individual work of art for that person, and that's what I like, and that's what I think catches the eye. It's not just this uniform people with, same hair. It's different.
We all used to wear the same hair. We all used to buy Remy Goddess, and it'd all be down to here or whatever. We go to the same hairdresser, have the same sort of thing done, and you just couldn't tell us from behind. You couldn't tell who was who. You'd be like, no, because we all are the same, because we all had the same hair.
That's why people, when they go on holiday with a weave, they can't go in the sea, at least not to cover their hair, because boy, they're going to have a really terrible looking outcome.
And they're not working against their hair, they're working with their hair, and they're creating beautiful works of art for their individual self. And that's what I find very beautiful, and I think that's what catches the eye. When you're just in a world of blandness and sameness, and then you see this, for me, I can't hide it. I'm not going to lie, I love it. I think it's I really do. I'm a huge fan.
Another thing on the cost of beauty, it is trial and error. Trial and error with the whole going natural thing. There have been so many mistakes that I have made, and that's why I kind of want to share both the good and the bad. For example, I have orange hands today, which you might have noticed, and that came as a result of me being really impulsive and impatient and trying to do my first henna treatment on my hair, trying to like do a strengthening thing, but also maybe put some colour on it. I was experimenting my first time, and without gloves, this is what happens.
Britain's beauty industry is worth an estimated £15 billion annually. From hair salons and nail bars to skincare treatments and cosmetic surgery.
In the context of the exhibition that I worked on in 2013, Origins of the Afrocomb, I have heard people saying quite definitely that black women spend more money on their hair than any other group, and so on. I'm not sure that that's true. I haven't looked into it yet. I suspect that European women probably spend a lot on their hair care, dyeing, perming, making the hair blonde.
I used to be able to afford to go to a hairdresser's behind Harrods, actually it was. I would get my hair washed and blow dried and maybe conditioned or whatever, and spend coming up to 80 odd pounds just for a wash. We're not talking about a relax or anything. To relax it, you could easily double it, you know. So it was a very, very expensive indulgence back in the day.
Natural hair has become big business, and so there are so many companies out there now doing this whole natural thing. You just put natural on something and it's like, yeah, sell.
What changed for me, or going what I would call full natural, where I'm wearing my own hair out, is the fact that I thought, well, why am I buying these weaves and these, hair pieces and these extensions? Where am I buying them from? Where's the money going?
Like, it doesn't have to be that expensive. You don't have to have all these products, these fancy this, that, and the other. Like, the basics will really do.
We should be buying our own beauty products from each other. There are so many brothers and sisters out there who have developed their own.
Over a typical lifetime of 65 years, she will spend around an estimated £18,000 on her looks. The most purchased products are face wipes.
My brother had an Afrocomb. He loved his Afrocomb. He used to walk around with it in his head sometimes. I used to laugh. But once he was stopped by the police because some old lady had seen a glint of metal, thinking it was a knife, and actually it was his Afrocomb, because it was back then it was a metal Afrocomb with red, gold and green on it.
Now the Afrocombs are usually made of plastic, and they're usually mass produced in China. So when you compare that to the traditional combs, and obviously we were looking in the exhibition at combs over a 6,000 year period, and you look at these combs that are like miniature works of art, they're made of different materials, they're made in that community, for people in that community, so people are buying them, so they're supporting both industry as well as an art form. And then you see it move to where you're at the stage now where they're being mass produced in another country and being produced obviously so cheaply and being made of plastic. That then raised lots of questions for me about economics.
There are a lot of people out there who really don't understand how our hair works. Obviously each of us has individual head of hair, and even within our head of hair, some parts of our hair might be coarser than others. Some parts might be thinner than others. It's about knowing your own hair, and it's about knowing what to do with your own hair.
It's difficult because you don't know what you've lost unless someone tells you you've lost it or you've seen it. I mean, one of the reactions that I had, and I know other people have this reaction, when you see some of the ancient hairstyles, sometimes you think, well, how was that hairstyle created? And sometimes it's the first time you've seen that hairstyle. So obviously that skill has been lost. I think certain styles like cornrowing or cane rowing and braiding, that's still continuing, and that's good.
We can do so many different things with our hair, and we just need to learn how to do it. And that's one of the reasons why I've decided to teach people how to do their own hair. I
did a dissertation looking at images of black women in Britain since the 1950s, and that was and how British culture had influenced those images, and that made me think a lot, because I had to trace back a lot of things that I didn't even want to look into, and I deliberately did from the 1950s, actually. I'll mention I deliberately did from the 1950s because I didn't want to look back at stuff like slavery and stuff like that. And in doing my research, I realised there is no way of avoiding it. There's no way of recognising and understanding my present without avoiding that huge fact of the past.
The reason why I decided to set up my publishing house and to set it up myself and to do this was because I realised that with all those things going on, with all those messages that you're getting from school, from your friends, from the media, then on top of that, if you're not getting some sense of the history, and what history you get, you're being told Black history is slavery, basically, that's also going to have an impact.
In the past, we've used this, which is a sort of standard head mannequin, and it has European hair, and learning how to do African hair on European hair mannequins is not really, the best thing.
I realised that for many children, if you give them a book on my body, at age 6 or whatever, they're going to see a straight hair follicle, a straight hair type, and then there might be some writing explaining the difference, but they're not actually going to see that illustration of their hair type, of an African hair type. So that then became a really big thing for me, and especially someone who's more looking at things from a historic point of view, I was quite surprised how much I had to get into the biology side of it.
So what we've done now is invested. This mannequin's name is Jade, and she replicates. I know she doesn't really look necessarily facially like an African woman, but the hair is as our hair is, and it has texture very, very similar to ours. Although this is synthetic, but the texture of it is the important part. And you can teach people how to actually care for their hair using examples of mannequins like this.
I wanted to write books that dealt not with what was being done or had been done negatively to Black people, but also books about what people of African descent have done and contributed to the world. So I wanted to write books where you could see civilizations and see about how they dressed, how they did their hair, what they ate, defense, politics, religion, the same as any other civilization.
And I tried to justify it as well. I tried to justify it like, yeah, but the Egyptians, man, they wore wigs, so I know I'm cool to do it. I'm good. Yeah.
Sometimes people say the ancient Egyptians used to wear wigs, and they're right, the ancient Egyptians did wear wigs, but the reason why they wore wigs was different from the reason why some people wear wigs today. So for example, if you look at the ancient Egyptians, they would wear their wig, but then they'd still have their natural hair showing. So the wig wasn't being worn to hide your natural hair or to hide that you had this particular hair texture. It's being worn for a different reason. Whereas today, many people who wear wigs would be horrified at having some of their natural hair showing.
Okay, so mentally, personally, it stripped away a lot of things, and I had to face a lot of things about myself. I didn't know that I didn't like myself. I didn't realize until I had the weave that was on my head, and it was growing out, and I was getting really frustrated because it was like I knew I'd have to book an appointment to get my weave redone, and it was just frustrating me that I would have to go through that process of getting the weave done. Because why was I getting the weave done? I was getting it done because my hair was growing out. So what's the problem with my hair growing out? The problem is I don't want to see it. I need to have it hidden. Okay, why am I hiding my hair? Why am I hiding it? Okay, so that made me really face how I felt about myself, that I felt that I was required to hide my hair, and I felt like I was a really proud person, like really proud of myself. So for me to actually face that I felt like I had to hide something about myself, that for me was really uncomfortable.
Even if you yourself feel very confident, if you live in a society that doesn't see you as beautiful, that still has an impact. So the self-esteem is really important, but it isn't the be-all and end-all. So don't ever put yourself down or feel that because you feel that way sometimes there's something wrong with feeling that way. It's not your imagination.
I decided to take the weave out and get to know my own hair.
When I did finally decide to chop off the relaxer, I think I probably had about that much hair.
So the first 2 weeks, took my weave out, and just felt ugly, basically. I just felt ugly. I just didn't like what I saw. When I looked in the mirror, I was also under this illusion that I wouldn't be able to do anything with my hair, that all I would be able to do was put it in an afro puff or have cane rows like when I was a kid, and I just felt immature, and I just felt so unpretty. And I remember I've got blog posts on my blog about when I'd walk down the high street and I'd see girls and they would have like their relaxer and their weave-in, and I tried to commit to myself to say I'm not going to do that anymore, so I'm sticking with what I've decided, which is going to be to get to know my own hair. And I look at these girls walking down the street and think, I was really jealous. I was so jealous. I just felt, why can't I just have my hair like that? And obviously now I realise it's for a greater reason, and I'm so glad that I didn't make those changes based on seeing other people, but it hurt. I felt ugly, and I cried. I cried so much during that time. If we're talking about the cost of beauty, one of the things that I've gained is a network of some amazing women, amazing people actually.
The natural hair movement is out there. You can sit down all day, every evening, watching how to do this hairstyle, that hairstyle. And some of these people on these, these who have these blogs and natural hair bloggers, they've got all different hair types, all different looks, and they are beautiful, and they're showing you all these styles. So you've got access to information. You just have to seek it out and remember that you're not alone.
We're talking about the rites of passage in the Western society, and that being like, for example, for me, going to get my hair straightened at 18 and stuff like that, the rites of passage and how they've changed. And maybe that's, maybe going natural is almost like a new one. Maybe it is a new one in the day and age and space that we live in.
I usually associate rites of passage with something that your community tells you will do at a certain age. And once you've done that, you then know you are now an adult.
The worrying thing I feel about this generation is they find their value in how they look, and that's not great. I don't think that's healthy.
It is a rites of passage, but it's also being then chosen by the self rather than society saying. And so it's a bit less formal or formalized in that way, and also the age at which it will happen. So whereas with the rites of passage, when you are in a society where things are more structured to help you and support you, you will know at this age I will be doing this. This way it means that your rites of passage with your hair then could be for some people age 16, for other people it might be age 18, someone else it might be 20, someone else it might be 25, someone else it might be 30. For a lot of people it's going to be 40 or 50.